Welcome to the last video in Chapter 11. In this video, we're talking about validating CSS. When you're validating CSS, one thing you want to make sure you're doing is using the correct site. If you're going to validator.w3.org, that is only for validating HTML. In order to validate CSS, you have to go to a different site under the same domain. In this case, you want to go to jigsaw.w3.org/css-validator. That way you can access the CSS validator, which will validate only CSS, instead of the HTML validator, which only validates HTML. You have the same process to validate your CSS by either a URL on a public web server, not just your local machine, a file upload, which allows you to upload your CSS files, or by direct input, which allows you to copy and paste the entire CSS file or your embedded CSS, as in between the style tags and the head of your document. To give you a good example, this is actually the CSS validation service. It looks fairly similar to the HTML one, but at the top it says CSS validation service versus HTML. Now I've put in a sample of CSS in the direct input, and if you already know what the mistake is, then you're a great CSS master. Otherwise, we'll correct this once we get into the actual validation process. Once you copy and paste your CSS, if you're copying and pasting embed CSS, don't copy the style tags, just the CSS itself. So once you run this through the validator, it may come back as, oops, we got an error, and therefore in this case, font style bold is not a font style. So therefore, if you are following along the previous videos, font style means only italicizing, so the only values you have are font style italic or font style none, not font style bold. So this way, the CSS validator will give you an error and say, hey, this isn't correct. Otherwise, once you go back and correct things and you submit valid CSS, you'll get a nice big green bar saying, hey, no errors have been found, and you can add these little fancy tags on your page. Not required, but a neat little fact. Below this item, you'll actually be able to see all your valid CSS if you want to. Chances are, once you start using the CSS validator, you may come across some weird errors that you don't know exactly how to decipher. If you come across a weird error, please send me the screenshot and your CSS file, and I can help you debug and decode the actual error, and we can work on it together to figure it out. That is it for Chapter 11. If you have any questions about this or anything in Chapter 11, please send me an email or hit me up on Twitter, and I'll get back to you with the best possible answer. Please also watch the Code With Me videos so you can actually see a lot of the CSS techniques in practice and also some of the validation before you get too far. The next chapter will talk about some more advanced CSS concepts such as CSS coloring and the box model.